Welcome to the Peak Performance Podcast, your guide to optimizing your life one health tip at a time. This podcast is designed to entertain and inform, not to provide medical or health advice. Always consult your doctor when it comes to your personal health or before you make any changes to your diet, exercise, or lifestyle.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Peak Performance Podcast! Woo! Wow, it's echoey in here, dude.
It's worse than the studio the first day.
Yeah, this is not your studio. This is a wide open space. Filming live from our new clinic in Greenville, South Carolina, my hometown. Well, I guess not hometown, but I live here now, so I'm calling it my hometown. So, what are we talking about today, Jackson?
We are talking more about mental health, and I'll let you explain the way that you described that, but in our previous episode, we went into your mental health journey and more practical things related to that. So how are we going to take those practical things and sort of a foundation of mental health and go deeper?
Yeah. So so we talked about the basics, right? And the basics are, nutrition, exercise, water, sleep. And then I would follow that up very quickly with hormones, because I have a theory that a lot of mental health stuff is hormone imbalances. To build on that, if we're going to add something to those five, say you've dialed in the nutrition, you've dialed in the sleep, you've dialed in your water intake, you dial in your exercise, and your hormones are balanced and good. The next step is, I would probably look, the next physical step, let's put it that way, is I would probably look at toxins. So, and this is something I've seen this a lot with the younger people, right? Where they have no tangible reason, quote unquote, to have mental health issues. Like, they've lived a great life. They have no trauma that they can remember in any way, shape, or form, but they still have anxiety. They still have depression. This is where I look at things like, go get a provocation test from a doctor, look at your heavy metals content in your body, look at your mold levels, maybe look for some viral reactivations, things like that, because they can be an explainer. A great example is like the connection between mold and nightmares. So mold toxicity, people will often complain of having extremely vivid nightmares. And to boil that down super simply, it's just your body telling you that there's something wrong. Hey, we have this thing here in us that's going wrong. This is a sign. All this stuff is important to work with your health coach and your doctor on. So if you've done all those basic things, you probably then want to look at, on the physical aspect of things, the biochemistry aspect, you probably want to look at your toxic burden. Okay, that's physical. So we're going to pivot from the physical to the mental to the psychological.
You started to hit on hormones, so let's take that one step further. How can hormone imbalances mimic mental health disorders, and how do you treat them?
Yeah. So hormones are one of those things that hormone dysfunction is almost always a symptom. It is not a cause. Now, it's a symptom that can cause other symptoms. So, classic example is, say you're a male or female, your testosterone's low, you're probably going to have some depression, maybe some anxiety. Women, it's much more complex. You're looking at estrogen, progesterone. Progesterone's a big one for women and mental health. A lot of times, like, I've seen doc put women on progesterone, and like their mental headspace just gets cleared up within a couple weeks. Like, what? It was just progesterone. So, and we're going to do an episode at some point on menopause and how the flows of these hormones ebb and flow as you go through menopause. But basically, these hormones work in a way in which they balance your system. And if your hormones are unbalanced, your entire system's going to be unbalanced, and that can manifest in mental health issues. Did that answer the question?
It's very interesting. Yeah. So we're going to take it a slightly different way. What are the biggest limitations of traditional diagnose and medical model for mental health?
Yes. The biggest limitations. So the route that I see most people go for mental health issues is therapy and medication, right? And therapists are like realtors, where like for every 99 bad realtors, you get one good one. I say this because I'm a realtor, so, and I'm one of the bad ones because I don't really do it. I just kind of have a realtor's license. So, first of all, most therapists are not very good at their job. I've been to a lot of therapists. And probably, I would say 90% of them were just like shallow, surface level, like people, you know how many people told me how to breathe, or a breathing technique that I could do? And I'm like, dude, I could write a book on breathing techniques. Like, I know all the science behind breathing techniques. That's not my issue here. So, looking for a good therapist, I think, is the first start. And then and when I say good therapist, like therapy should not be your source of comfort. Like, you should not go in there to like decompress and like rant about stuff. Like, no. Therapy is painful and uncomfortable, and they should be poking and prodding and getting to the root of things. So, first of all, most people go to therapy. If you've been to 100 sessions of therapy and you're not dramatically better, it's not working. Like, when's it gonna kick in? Session 200? Like, if you've been in therapy for over a year and you've gotten no progress, little to no progress, it's not working. And so many people do this. They just like go to therapy like a punch card. They punch in and punch out. Like, it's not working. So part of that could be the therapist. And part of that could be, hey, you didn't address the underlying physical things first. Because if it's not trauma, if it's not psychological based, it's probably physical based. And then the next step is usually if you see a psychiatrist. So the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist is a psychologist does not prescribe and a psychiatrist does. Psychiatrists love meds. Like, you could probably go to a psychiatrist and walk out with a script on the first day.
So oft.
Yeah.
Lexapro.
Yeah, I have beef with this in general because these meds have not been shown in any literature to effectively heal or fix anything. They mask symptoms somewhat effectively, and they numb. They cause side effects, but they do not heal and fix. And so when you're looking at these medications, like, you want to think, is this really just a Band-Aid for what I'm going through? Is this something that I'm okay taking for a long period of time to mask symptoms and increase my dose over time until I'm a shell of who I was? Like, if you're okay with that, then maybe try the medications. The flip side of that is, like, medications are absolutely amazing in acute mental health episodes. So, like, if you're having a psychotic break, if you're dealing with extreme bipolar, if you are having like very, very severe psychological problems, medications. That's what they are good at. They can balance. They can get you out from a place of danger to a place where you can do the work. So, like, there is a place. It's kind of like emergency medicine. Like, if you get hit by a truck, don't call your integrative doctor. Go to the ER. like your integrative doctor is going to be like, go to the ER. That's what they do really well. So if it's an acute, actual, like, psychological major problem, go to a psychiatrist, figure it out, get stabilized. If it's a chronic thing that's underlying, that's maybe slowly building over time, this is where we can work on different strategies. So I don't love the meds. The meds bring their whole different set of problems. My family, some of my family members are on some of these meds, and they cause sleep problems and other problems that don't do good for your mental health because sleep, that's one of the foundation things. That's what we got to work on. So that's the kind of general issues with the standard model. Now, how do we correct some of those? So when I say most therapists are not good therapists, I have a threshold. And maybe my threshold is too high. But I want a PhD in psychology, right? I want a psychologist. I do not want a licensed counselor. I do not want a psychiatrist because they're going to push the meds. I want a PhD in psychology, psychologist. And they will do the deep work because they are specifically trained in a medical school application to do the deep work and uncover and find what the problem is. My experience with this is I did a 3-day intensive with a PhD psychologist. And it was painful as all get out and very intense. And we did like 20 hours of therapy, just back to back to back. Now, what that did for me, did it solve anything? No. But did I identify all of the underlying issues and traumas that I needed to work on? Yes. Because we did the work. We did the digging. So that's where that psychologist can come in handy. And they have strategies to help you work on those traumas. My recommendation is once you identify them, use the fun tech. Use the emerging science things to work on that. So when I say that, I mean EMDR. I say neurofeedback. Some of these more advanced tech features that can actually help reprogram your brain to clear these traumas.
So on that note, what are some more exciting or effective emergent therapies? I hear things like ketamine is now being used, right? What are some of these more maybe newer things that science is coming out, research is coming out, like we can do this, and it's not just therapy, it's not just throwing Zoloft or Lexapro at people. What are some of these other therapies?
Yeah, so some of these other therapies some of these other therapies that we can look at are, I'd say, you mentioned ketamine. You got to indulge me in a rant for a second. There's a lot of sketchy ketamine clinics out there. Like, if you are not doing a preset intention and pre-therapy, and then your ketamine, and then post-therapy and following up, you're just doing drugs. Like I'm just gonna say it. Like, if you were literally going into a clinic and getting a ketamine IV, and that was your treatment, that's just doing drugs. Like, ketamine's not going to work without doing the work before and after. So set your intention. Really dive into exactly what you want to clear with the neuroplasticity, how you want to reframe things, and then work on that post with unpacking it post your treatment. The other thing with ketamine and any of this psychedelics is you got to know that you are in a place of extreme neuroplasticity for the next 4 weeks or so. This means you want to dial in your lifestyle. So, like, if you have extreme neuroplasticity and then you're doing a bunch of terrible lifestyle habits or whatever, you're going to wire that into your brain. So you want to make sure you're drinking your water, you're getting good sleep, you're eating clean, and it'll actually make doing all those things easier because it's wiring it in your brain after you've kind of elapsed the neuroplasticity period. So ketamine, I think, is a decent option for people. In terms of efficacy, it seems to be fairly efficacious. The gold standard seems to be 2 doses at the right dosage level, which means you have to disassociate. If you don't actually get the disassociation, you're not going to get the true neuroplasticity. So usually that ends up being 3 doses for people, because the first one, most good clinics will go low and slow, and you won't get to exactly where you need to be on the first one. So you end up probably doing 3 sessions. So ketamine's a cool one. EMDR, Basically, if I could just strip it all the way down, it's like lights and stuff that move back and forth. And what it does is it resets triggers in your brain and puts you in a place where you can reframe things. While you're doing this, you go through the therapy, unpacking the trauma, and the goal of it is to reset how your brain views that trauma. So this is a great one. Requires probably quite a few sessions for people. But again, if you've done 40 or 50 of them and you don't have improvement, it's not working. Do something else. And then my personal favorite is neurofeedback. So I did a lot of neurofeedback. I went to 40 years of Zen. It's Dave Asprey's like it's like a cottage in Seattle, and it's an amazing experience. It's got like a private chef that cooks you all bulletproof, all healthy, non-toxic food, and no breakfast. You fast in the morning, no caffeine, no nicotine, like you're stripping everything down. And they have a whole reset process. It's extremely difficult to explain if you have not been, but the whole basis of it is we're going to get you in a certain brain state. We're going to train you how to get in that brain state. And then from there, we're going to do work to clear traumas and find forgiveness for the people who wronged you in your life, or find forgiveness for yourself or other things. And then it's a whole process they have. But neurofeedback paired with the resetting, the doing the work mentally. And what I mean by that is you can go get neurofeedback, right? And you can just put the headset on and look at a little computer screen and try to play the little game and fly the spaceship through the loop. But that will teach your brain how to get in certain brain wave states, but it's not going to clear anything. Like, that is just training you how to, it'll probably reduce stress. It'll probably help you regulate your mental mood a little better, but it's not going to clear traumas. So you have to get into the brain state. That's like you're getting into like the hardware system, and then you change the software while you're in there. You're doing the work, you're doing the forgiveness, you're doing the reset process. So neurofeedback paired with doing the work, I think is a great option. For me, that 40 years of Zen week, I'd say it changed me forever. I mean, it came back and my mood was stabilized. I was able to approach things with more love and empathy. I was able to handle stressful situations and not react intensely. And it was a game changer for me.
So you're saying you can't just do things but not resolve the underlying problem and get your mental health to a place where you're sustainable, happy, and long-lasting peace.
Yeah. So you'll see the common thread here is all these things are tools to get your brain in a certain place. Once your brain is in a certain place, then you must approach the traumas. You must reset them in your mind. You must get to a place where you have accepted that that is part of your story and not have that emotional burden that goes with it. So it's not just, hey, I'm going to go do neurofeedback and fly a spaceship through a ring, or hey, I'm going to stare at an EMDR light and magic things are going to happen in my brain, or hey, I'm just going to get a massive dose of ketamine and zone out for a couple hours. But those won't do anything for clearing the underlying traumas.
Joey, that's pretty good.
Okay. Well, one last thing I want to hit on is all the emerging therapies for psychedelics. We touched on ketamine a little bit, and I'm just going to give the whole rundown real quick. So if ketamine is your base level, your next step up is, say, like MDMA, Psilocybin. Your next step up over that is like LSD. Your next step over that is Ayahuasca.
So let me tee you up with that. What do you know about other psychedelics outside of ketamine that are being used for mental health, and what are the effects or what's coming out about them, if they're good or not?
The effects are absolutely astounding on the FDA trials. Like, the remission rates for depression and anxiety with these treatments are like nothing we've ever seen before.
And which other ones outside of ketamine are you talking about?
LSD and psilocybin. The data that's come out so far is very, very impressive. Now, again, we have to note the same thing. These are being done in a clinical setting you're being observed, you're doing setting your intention, you're doing pre-therapy, you're doing post-therapy, and we're doing the work, right? If you're not doing all that, you're just taking drugs. And you get into a very weird spiritual world when you start getting into psychedelics. There are dangers associated with that spiritual world. You can pick up evil spirits. You can pick up all kinds of weird crap. I recommend generally, if you're going to try this, first and foremost, work with a super, super qualified practitioner who knows what they're doing, and start with ketamine. Ketamine is a synthetic substance that has less spiritual implications than the rest of them. It's a much cleaner experience. So if you could do what you need to do with ketamine, you don't have to worry about the spiritual world you might get into when you get into psilocybin and LSD. I would argue that LSD, in terms of the spiritual side of things, is probably a little safer than psilocybin just because of the origin. One is a synthetic chemical, it's a little cleaner. The other one is a plant. Ayahuasca is like, please approach it with the utmost care and respect, and know that it is dangerous. Like, you are going as hard as you possibly can in the psychedelic world with ayahuasca. And there are real spiritual dangers that you could get exposed to. So I really don't recommend anybody does this, just in general. And if
in the layman's term for ayahuasca, is there a drug term, or is that what people go by?
Ayahuasca, yeah. The plant, maybe. I don't know.
I think I was confusing MDMA.
No, that's a separate thing. Yeah, ayahuasca is like, you hear about people going to Peru and stuff like that and doing it there. Like, if you're going and it's like some dude who took a weekend course on ayahuasca and is like a weekend shaman.
Run.
No, that's a big no.
You're there to do drugs.
Yeah. And you're opening yourself up to dangers that you don't understand, that we don't understand. So like, if you can do it with ketamine, do it with ketamine. Like, you're probably not going to get into spiritual worlds in ketamine. You're just going to disassociate. Like, it's much cleaner, it's much safer. So that's kind of the whole psychedelic line up there. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us on the Peak Performance Podcast. I'm Coach Kyle, here with our producer, Jackson.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Peak Performance Podcast, your #1 resource for today's top health hacks and facts. You can follow us on Instagram at the Peak Performance Pod or on X at PerformPod. You can also check out our website and weekly blogs at peakperformancepodcast.online. Again, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. We put out a new podcast every Thursday. The content of this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended for the purposes of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products referenced on the podcast, consult with your healthcare provider. Carefully read all labels and heed all directions and cautions that accompany the product. Information found or received through the podcast should not be used in place of a consultation or advice from a healthcare provider. If you suspect you have a medical problem or should you have any healthcare questions, please promptly call or see your healthcare provider. This podcast, including Coach Kyle, Dr. K, and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of the information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein.